According to the FBI, Chinese equipment may be able to disrupt top-secret information in the US. Chinese tech has been a threat for a long time. A Chinese company has stolen the technology for 7-nanometer chips from Taiwan. The US will be even more likely to pass the CHIP Act. Taiwan's MediaTek company goes to Intel for an order. Usually it goes to TSMC, so this is a blow for the big company. The former US Secretary supports the current US House Speaker's upcoming visit to Taiwan. Despite threats from China, he defiantly offered to join the trip. China invited the Indonesian President to Beijing for a visit. It's unusual because China still has strict COVID restrictions. What do they want? Finally, China's working-age population will lose about 200 million people by 2050. This will have major impacts on its economy. Let's get into it. Welcome to Sound of Hope News. My name is Daniela Wolensack, and today is July 26th. According to the FBI, Chinese equipment may be able to disrupt top-secret communications within the US military. This could affect the security of the US nuclear arsenal. Over the past decade, Chinese espionage in the US has dramatically escalated. This comes from CNN on Saturday, July 23rd. In 2017, the Chinese government offered to spend $100 million on an ornate Chinese garden in the National Arboretum in Washington, D.C. It would have included temples, pavilions, and a 70-foot pagoda. The city government hoped it would attract thousands of tourists every year. But then, U.S. counterintelligence noticed that the pagoda would have been strategically placed on one of the highest points in Washington, D.C., just 2 miles from the U.S. Capitol. This would have been a perfect spot to collect intelligence signals, according to CNN. Federal officials quickly killed the project before construction began. Furthermore, the FBI uncovered China-made Huawei equipment atop cell towers near U.S. military bases in the rural Midwest. The equipment could capture and disrupt highly restricted Defense Department communications. One former FBI official spoke anonymously, quote, "It would impact our ability for essentially command and control with the nuclear triad." Investigating Huawei is a critical issue. In fall 2019, the Federal Communications Commission initiated a rule that effectively banned small telecoms from using Huawei and a few other brands of Chinese-made equipment. FBI Director Christopher Wray said to CNN, "The FBI opens a new China counterintelligence investigation every 12 hours, and about 2,000 investigations are ongoing." He adds, quote, "And that's not even talking about their cyber theft, where they have a bigger hacking program than that of every other major nation combined." The US, Taiwan, and Korea were alarmed by China's Semiconductor Manufacturing International Corporation on July 24th. Why? It just announced a new 7-nanometer chip, according to watchdog Tech Insights. The new chip is a complete copy of Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's 7-nanometer chip. An image of the new chip after disassembly confirmed this. Prior to this, SMIC was only able to produce 14-nanometer chips. The news comes as the US is about to introduce the CHIP Act, which is currently being evaluated by the US government. Sound of Hope contributor Lo Qing says the CHIP Act will probably pass because it involves the national security of the US. The way we fight today is already different from what people did in World War II. Drones in the Russia-Ukrainian war and the massive spread of cyber positioning on social media have subverted our ideas of war. This week is a critical time for the vote. He says the SMIC issue should alarm the United States and cause hesitant American politicians to make up their mind. In addition, on July 13th this year, the White House and the Israeli government press office announced a joint statement on US-Israeli science and technology cooperation. The two sides will strengthen technology partnerships in key and emerging areas. They will develop defense equipment and dual-use technologies. At the same time, the US is lobbying Dutch semiconductor manufacturer ASML to restrict equipment sales to the Chinese Communist Party even more. On Monday, July 25th, shocking news hit the semiconductor industry. Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing Company's major customer, MediaTek, announced that it will switch an order to Intel. The order will build chips for a range of smart edge devices using Intel Foundry services. Industry insiders say that, quote, there has to be more stories to this surprising deal. According to Taiwan Central News Agency, MediaTek is TSMC's third largest customer. TSMC has more than 20 years of close relations with MediaTek. As for why the sudden switch, many speculate that it is because of the US CHIP Act that may pass, and geopolitics. The US Congress will vote on the new CHIP Act this week. There are still uncertainties over whether it will pass. Intel and GlobalFoundries have previously stated that they will hold off investments in the US indefinitely if the act is not passed. Many thought Intel and GlobalFoundries' position would help the passing of the bill. MediaTek has been a dominant force in China, especially in the mobile phone market. This action can be treated as a gesture of goodwill to maintain relations with the United States. When asked whether orders for TSMC would be dropped, MediaTek emphasized that currently its relationship with TSMC has not changed. However, MediaTek added that only time will tell whether it will reduce TSMC orders in the future. Industry insiders pointed out that MediaTek's current foundry sources include TSMC, UMC, SMIC, and others. Intel at best is MediaTek's fifth or even sixth foundry source. As a result, the immediate impact on TSMC is expected to be minimal. MediaTek emphasized that orders from advanced chip-making processes will still be placed with TSMC. Intel will also be a customer of TSMC's advanced processes. It is entirely possible that both MediaTek and Intel are pulling together for other market interests. According to industry analysts, MediaTek is the fourth largest IC design company in the world. With the possible passage of the US CHIP Act, companies that have good relations with China are now forced to choose sides. The MediaTek-Intel partnership makes sense from a geopolitical point of view. The fallout from US House Speaker Nancy Pelosi's planned visit to Taiwan in August is far from over. Former US Secretary Mike Pompeo spoke out against the Chinese Communist Party's intimidation. On July 25th, Pompeo tweeted his support for Pelosi's visit to Taiwan and said, "I'll go with you." Pompeo explained that although he is banned from Taiwan, the ban does not cover freedom-loving Taiwan. Finally, Pompeo and Pelosi agreed to see you there. In an interview with The Times earlier, Pompeo admitted that he was ready to run for president with the Republicans in 2024. Now, Pompeo's few sentences to Pelosi have put the Democratic Party in a dilemma. He's implied to the Chinese Communist Party that Taiwan is not their territory, and that the sanctions imposed by the Chinese Communist Party on Pompeo will not work in Taiwan. According to Josh Rogin, a columnist for the China Post, if Pelosi's visit to Taiwan is blocked after the news of the Chinese Communist Party's threat to the US comes to light, it may give Beijing the impression that the US can be threatened. So far, it seems China's threats have ironically made Pelosi's visit even more likely. On July 25th, Indonesian President Joko Widodo was invited to visit Beijing. It's rare for China to invite foreign leaders during its zero-COVID times. It's likely Chinese President Xi Jinping is meeting with the Indonesian President to get out of self-imposed epidemic restrictions. It starts with diplomacy, resuming reception of foreign dignitaries, and finding a step down for themselves through Widodo. China is Indonesia's largest trading partner, with two-way trade between the two countries reaching $110 billion last year. A research at the Indonesian Policy Research Center, Trisya Wijaya, said that Indonesia seeks economic benefits. Topics on both sides could include the delay behind the high-speed rail project in Indonesia. It is being built by Chinese companies. Widodo hoped to make it his political legacy and have it operational by 2024. A senior researcher at the ICS Yusof Ishak Institute said that although China and India have no disputes in the South China Sea, quote, part of Indonesia's exclusive economic zone is demarcated by the CCP within its 9-dash line. It has always been one of the main sources of diplomatic tension between the two countries. According to a survey last year by an Australian think tank, the Lowy Institute, Indonesians' trust in the Chinese Communist Party has declined. Most Indonesians in the past believed that China would become Asia's leading economic power, but now only 31% think so. Widodo met Xi Jinping and the Chinese premier on Tuesday, before holding talks with the Japanese Prime Minister in Tokyo on Wednesday and the South Korean president in Seoul on Thursday. China's population will dip significantly before 2025. The demographic decline is coming faster than anticipated. This is a threat to the country's economic model, years ahead of schedule. Head of Population and Family Affairs at China's National Health Commission, Yang Wenzhuang, stated the country's population is expected to begin declining from 2021 to 2025. Earlier forecasts expected the decline to begin in 2027, Global Times reported. Birth data in China last year reached its lowest level on record. There were less than 8 births for every 1,000 people in 2021 on average. Only one of China's 31 provinces, Guangdong, recorded over 1 million new births. China's fast decline in natural population growth is because most of the young people in China are choosing not to have children. Factors include high costs of raising a child and work pressure. A shrinking population is a huge challenge for China's long-term economic outlook. In the past, China's growth has been powered by its large population of working-age people. UN data shows that China's working-age population will lose over 200 million people by 2050. Professor of Demography at the University of Melbourne, Peter MacDonald, said that the dwindling population will constrain the labor supply, leading to an upward pressure on wages, according to Fortune. MacDonald also pointed out low levels of gender equity in China's institutions and long working hours are the main reasons why families may decide against having children. Thank you so much for watching. You are a great audience. If you like what you saw, please remember to like, comment, and subscribe. See you tomorrow.